Well, we have on live from Washington, Edward Peck, former U.S. ambassador to Mauritania quite a while ago. Obviously been a lot of suspicions flying around about the coup in Mauritania. And the timing, I understand the head of the IMF was there, actually, not long before the coup. As far as you understand it, what happened to the democratically elected government of this oil-rich nation?
You know, it's such a wonderful and interesting place to be. I lived there for 2.5 years and enjoyed it immensely, professionally as well as personally. It is so difficult to understand how these things happen. When I was there, there was a coup, and the government was peacefully overthrown. And I believe I mentioned on Press TV that we didn't even know a coup had happened, and the American embassy is right next door to the presidential palace. We had to hear it on the radio, because the country went on just the way it had been before. And I bring this up only because I think a lot of people have a very hard time understanding that Mauritania is different than many other countries in Africa and elsewhere. And you have just shown a film clip of what I gather was demonstrations against the coup taking place peacefully. I don't see any shots of the military doing anything. And the reason I think this is important is that the military has been very powerful in Mauritania since independence. It has had nothing, a whole series of senior military officers have been president and have been replaced by other military officers. So I think that what we're seeing there is a show of force by the military saying, hey, we are so powerful that you cannot get rid of the 4 top guys just by saying they're fired. You can't fire them because the military's in charge.
Because
and it is.
I mean, the reason there were suspicions, but then US aid was suspended. NATO and the EU have piled in with criticism. We are hearing some reports, and we did hear some reports, that the CIA might have been involved in the initial stages. Why is it that, as I said, I noticed that the Dominique Strauss-Kahn from the IMF was there. $2 a day, the average wage in Mauritania. Do you think it's changed much since you were there?
Well, the country was doing reasonably well until the drought hit. A large percentage of the population were nomads. They were herders. They herded their cattle and their camels and their sheep from water place to water place, from grazing ground to grazing ground, and they lived off camel's milk and cow's milk, and they ate the camels and they ate the cows, and it was a reasonably peaceful nomadic existence until the water went away. And then the population was forced to move to places where they had water and where the government could supply housing and some kind of food and some kind of work. The economy was shattered. The social system was destroyed, and the country went through a major upheaval, and which was going on when I was there. But when you mention $2 a day, you always have to factor in what things cost there. You know, $2
sure,
a day wouldn't get you very
Ambassador,
far in Tokyo.
but away from
Yes,
this,
sir,
away from this idyllic nomadic existence, the country has oil. It's of strategic.
I didn't say idyllic, sir.
Okay, but it's of strategic importance, and of course they've discovered oil deposits. It's recently been making deals with Venezuela, not a country that Washington likes very much. And also 70% of the food is imported, and yet the IMF, as it has done in so many African countries, has told it to restructure, told it to alter the way the economy of the country works, regardless of its culture. The so-called Chicago boys are well in Mauritania. Who is winning out of the coup d'etat? Who gets something? Or is this just merely an internal affair? Because so many African countries have coups, and then years later we realize that Washington, the CIA, all sorts of forces behind the White House are behind those coups.
You know, I don't want to throw cold water on your theory, but I will. If the CIA was behind everything that people accuse it of being behind, my goodness, they would be busy. It is perfectly possible to have a coup with no outside involvement. In fact, it is perfectly possible to have a coup without involvement of anybody else except the people who stage the coup. I don't see any advantage to the United States from having this coup take place.